From deep within the cavernous belly of Rath to the bloodied laboratory of the Riptide Project, spreading even so far as the distant eastern shores on the rogue plain of Shandalar, there's one commander that is feared by all others, and that is the commander of the Slivers. Although there are several legendary Slivers to choose from, Sliver Overlord is the clear choice for commander. 5 mana for a 7/7 is nothing compared to his ability to tutor for slivers. The ability to grab the specific sliver you need for the specific situation that you are in, and continue doing so, even multiple times per turn, is the ultimate in toolkit decks. Overlord's ability to gain control of any sliver is icing on the cake when combined with an amoeboid changeling's ability to make anything a sliver. Now, recently the Sliver Hive Lord of M15 has gotten a lot of attention as a potential commander. While the Hive Lord excites me as a Sliver commander player, you still don't want him as commander instead of Overlord. The Overlord can simply tutor for him from your deck when you are ready to bring him out. The same goes for Sliver Legion and Sliver Queen. Sliver Legion is great to bring out for a more aggro strategy, and Sliver Queen is for those interested in comboing out, but either can be pulled out from your deck with the Overlord in play. Since each of these potential Sliver commanders is very expensive at the moment, for this deck list I'm only going to include the Sliver Overlord and Hive Lord on the official list. I've got a cheaper way to replicate Sliver Legion's ability, and this isn't going to be a combo-heavy build. That being said, if you have a Sliver Legion or a Sliver Queen already, or one day you have the opportunity to trade for one, then by all means put them in your deck. But as far as commander goes, Sliver Overlord is your best choice, and as far as must-have inside the deck goes, you want the indestructible granting Hive Lord over Queen or Legion. Besides Overlord and Hive Lord, what does your deck need? Let's look at the first tier of slivers, what I like to call our hub slivers. Homing Sliver is a top pick. Again, as we progress through all the slivers and their abilities, it is like having a toolkit of power at our disposal. With the Homing Sliver's ability to let us spend 3 and throw away 1 sliver in hand in exchange for another, it creates a wild card sliver effect, where every sliver in hand is essentially any sliver in our deck. An absolute must. The hardest thing about Sliver Commander, besides everyone at the table focusing their sights on you from turn 1, is the mana base. I'll talk mana base later, but these 2 slivers are the key to an easy victory. Gemhide Sliver and Mana Weft Sliver turn all your slivers into producers of any color mana. This not only ramps your power, generating tons of mana at your disposal, but it also solves any mana problems this 5-color deck might be having. Winged Sliver and Gale Rider Sliver both do the same thing, giving all your slivers flying. This provides you with both an aggressive swarm as well as a better defense. The next tier of slivers are our core slivers. These slivers pump up our sliver forces' power and toughness and help them survive. They are all 1 and 2 drops, which means we can bring them out early and easy. Shroud is vital protection. Imagine pairing Shroud and indestructibility. The next tier are our key slivers. These are the powerful, dangerous slivers that are going to strike fear into our opponents. Harmonic Sliver takes care of artifacts or enchantments. Not only does it destroy one when it comes into play, but now every time you cast any sliver, they each destroy one automatically too. Necrotic Sliver is all around removal. Sack a sliver to destroy a permanent. That means creature, Planeswalker, anything, it doesn't matter. Psionic Sliver gives you an artillery force of firepower. With just a little help from those muscle and sinew slivers, you can end up with a reusable tap to deal 2 damage to any target slivers. In an emergency, them blasting out 2 damage and killing themselves can still help keep your opponents under control. A little more costly in terms of mana, the Shifting Sliver more or less makes your slivers unblockable. And why do we want them unblockable? Well, besides going in just for damage or commander damage victories, with Shifting Sliver, Winged Sliver, and Gale Rider Sliver making our horde hard, if not impossible to block, we swing in with Poisonous for an infect-like victory. Having 10 slivers to swing at an opponent is not at all unlikely. Our next tier of slivers are our defensive tier. Being able to Fate Seal your opponents is a great way to slow down their progress against you. The Dormant Sliver prevents you from attacking, but the card draw is incredible. You simply bide your time drawing through massive cards as you build an army. Then either sack the Dormant Sliver to swing in for the kill, or just use something like the Psionic to win from afar. Speaking of killing from afar, Cautery and Acidic Slivers allow you to do just that. Great for creature removal or finishing off your opponents. Pulmonic Sliver lets you keep any vital slivers from being removed. If someone manages to kill or destroy something you want to keep, the Pulmonic lets you place it on top of your library instead. The added flying is also nice. Root Sliver is great protection from counters, and Crypt Sliver is something that can come out early to help keep your building pieces on the board. Alright, the next tier is our offensive tier, giving our Slither battle advantages such as First Strike, Haste, Double Strike, or just more power and toughness. Brood Sliver is our Sliver generator. Again, this is why the added evasion abilities of the Gale Rider and Mistform are so important. Hitting with slivers to make more slivers gets out of control fast. The final tier of slivers are our emergency options. This is, for all intents and purposes, our deck's panic button. Here we can sacrifice slivers for much needed life, mana, or just an emergency unsummon or regeneration. Each of these are options that you'll be glad you have access to should things turn sour. Alright, let's look at our tier of support spells. Heartstone and Training Grounds serve the same purpose, bringing the cost of your Sliver's activated abilities down to 1. Wild Pair is more tutoring help, a great way to gain forces fast. Affetto Dredging is for bringing back any critical slivers that got killed, and I personally like keeping an Animate Dead in hand as an emergency way to bring something back into play. Again, there's a plethora of options for these slots, but I favor Bant Charm for the versatility of getting rid of an artifact, countering an instant, or just tucking an opponent's commander. Finally, Wargate is a must in this category. You can bring anything in your library into play with it, the perfect way to get the answer you need. At this point, I'd say your remaining cards are highly customizable. You can choose whether you want to go heavy removal or heavy counter spells or what have you. I have a selection that includes Terminate, Mortify, and Dismember for removal, and I've chosen to go with Forbid as my counterspell because if I feel I need it, I can buy it back at the cost of discarding 2. Asceticism is a favorite of mine. Your creatures are no longer targets of your opponents, and you can also regenerate any of them for only 2 mana. Board Wipe is a commander must, and again, this is highly customizable to your play style. but I prefer the classics such as Larry Niven's Disc, Wrath of God, and Armageddon. Like everyone else in Commander, I also keep a Terminus handy. And then there's my personal favorite of Catastrophe. I love the option for land destruction from this and Armageddon, because thanks to the Mana Weft and Gem Hide Slivers, I don't need lands for mana. A critically timed land wipe can be, well, a catastrophe for the rest of the board. I also like having a Ponder handy. In a deck like this, there's never a point in the game where I wouldn't mind seeing what's coming and having the chance to shuffle it away. Now we get to the hardest and in some ways most contentious part of a Sliver Commander deck, the mana base. Before we get to the debatable builds, let's start with 5 must-have lands. Sliver Hive was a gift from the gods for us. Any color for slivers and sliver token generation? Like I said, this is a must-have. The counterspell protection is almost secondary to just being able to have any color of mana. Again, our biggest problem is mana fixing, and a Rupture Spire is well worth the delay. Obviously, you could consider going with the City of Brass or Mana Confluence instead as well. And for more mana of any color, Ancient Ziggurat and Command Tower. Alright, let's talk mana base price. 5 colors is trouble. You're going to have difficulty getting the colors you want, when you want, early game. This has led a lot of guides to suggest some pretty expensive setups, including original dual lands and fetch lands. I'm going to respectfully disagree with that. Obviously, if you have access to the original duals, or if you have access to bags of gold, then that's going to be the best possible build. But if you don't have the original duals, then don't let that keep you out of slivers. I think an affordable base can be put together for relatively cheap, and then slowly upgraded as you build your collection and decide that this is indeed the Commander deck for you. This is what I'd start with for an entirely budget build. The 5 Alara Tri-lands and the 5 Alara Panoramas. Again, this isn't ideal, but it gives you a very strong chance of getting what you need for the cards you are trying to play. I'd suggest 2 routes in terms of upgrades. The first would be replacing some or all of the prior with Pain lands. Again, while far from ideal, Pain lands come into play untapped, can be tapped for colorless mana most of the time, and at the cost of 1 life give you the color you need when you need it. While there's been an uptick in price since the recent M15 reprinting, the Pain lands are still generally very affordable. The next level of upgrade would be to go with the Shock lands. Many players currently have these in their binders due to their 2-year run in Standard. And at the moment, prices are low and might possibly dip for a moment when they rotate out of Standard. In addition to this, the following selection of the Ravnica Signets is a good mana acceleration. And then rounding out the deck, we have of course a Chromatic Lantern to make all your lands give you any color you need. Another must-have in this deck. Darksteel Ingot and Sol Ring also go without saying. And I also like to throw in an Evolving Wilds and Terramorphic Expanse. As far as basic lands go, this is again customizable, but I tend to favor a higher number of forests to the other 4 colors. You'll find the deck list posted in the video's description. As always, this is meant as a starting template. In Commander, more so than any other format, the personal touch and customization is half the fun. I hope this video has been helpful for you. You can help me out by remembering to subscribe, like, share, or just by leaving a comment. And remember, no local card shop is getting rich just by letting you and your friends play Commander there for hours on end. Show support for that community by buying your cards and accessories at the place where you play Magic.